In my last video, I demonstrated how you could use the code for your agent in Azure and then bring it down to your desktop and deploy it. You could actually refactor it, and I demonstrated how I refactored the code to create a GUI front end for all my prompts and all the responses. Now here I'm going to show how you can also view the agent not just from your Foundry interface, that is in on the browser, but you can also do it from your Visual Studio Code. So let's say I go into this project and I have a few agents built here. So I bring up this Oracle Concepts RAG agent. I have shown this earlier. So this is the playground. It's using GPT-5. It's got instructions, and for the file search, I've uploaded a number of files into the vector store, so they're indexed. Now I can bring up VS Code, where I've also installed the Azure Extension and the Foundry extension. So let me just close this one. This is a demo code that I was still working on, which I've not completed. But let's close this one, and let me just go back and close this. Exit, close the folder. Okay, so I am back into my Visual Studio Code. So this is Azure extension here, and this is Foundry extension. Now remember, from my desktop I've already logged in to Azure using the Azure CLI commands, easy login. So I can go into Foundry and I see the resources that I have in the Foundry. So I have some models deployed, which I could also show from here, the models that I have deployed in that project. Or I can go in here and look at the agents that I have deployed. So this is the Oracle Concepts RAG agent, which is the same, which is basically what you see in the Foundry once it comes up. So it's basically this one that I see in the Foundry here, and this is a code sample I can see here, which I can deploy. Sorry, this is the concept RAG, and this is the sample code that can be used. So if I go into my Visual Studio Code using my Azure Foundry extension, I can see the same agent that is deployed. I can actually modify it from here. I can go in here and look at my file store that I've configured. Let me just go back here and see which are the files I have loaded here. So these are all the files I've loaded to be indexed in the vector store, and I can test the agent directly from Visual Studio Code. I can also go in here, use this view code option, and say where do I want to, which the folder I want to use for that. And here I am. This is my Oracle Concepts RAG agent. So if I go into the README file, it actually explains my agent very well here. There's a prompt quick start, there's an architecture overview. So if I were to run the agent from my desktop, I'll show you the Python code for that. HTTP calls to Foundry, then there's on the Foundry, these are the services that are running, prompt agent instructions and tools, which we saw earlier here, instructions and tools for the file search. So this README file that opens up shows me all that, what are the concepts, how it works, what are the prerequisites, and I have logged in with my Azure CLI easy login to login to Azure, so I can run everything from my Visual Studio Code also. And there's some quick start instructions, project structure, some more steps where I can go on keep improving. So that's what I did. In my previous video, I actually used GitHub Copilot, and instead of Copilot, I used Claude and built a GUI front end. I'll show you. I have demonstrated that in my previous video, but I can see the requirements here. That's only one requirement here. I can look at the env, which is all the details about my environment here. Okay, so this is my endpoint URL, and this is the code for the agent. So I could take this code and deploy it again separately on my own. Remember, so in this case I'm using easy login to connect and run my code. So this is how I can view my agent that I have deployed in Azure in the Azure Foundry, and I can view it from here. I'll just show that to you again. Let me just close everything here, start it up again and show you one more time. I'll start up VS Code one more time. Okay. So this is VS Code. I go into the Foundry, and okay, now this is my default project, and what are the models I've deployed in the project, and what are the agents have been deployed. So for example, I'll show the other agent, Microsoft Azure Knowledge Base, which I can show you here also. Okay, so this agent uses GPT-4o, and what is the tool? I could configure tools here. What are the conversations I've had with this agent in the past? I could look at go into view code and then see for this particular agent the readme file, how it works, all the instructions, the actual code I could run from my client side, and the requirements and the env file also. Let me go back to the other one, the Oracle Concept RAG. So just showing you this one more time. This is the model. I can't change the agent name from here, but I could make other changes, and the changes will be deployed remotely to the Foundry running on Microsoft website, basically Microsoft Foundry, not locally, because that's the model that's running. And like I showed you, these are the files I've uploaded. I'm just demonstrating everything twice so that you remember it. This is the playground. I could test the playground from here. Sorry. So I'm testing the playground from my desktop. Okay, and it does respond back to me. And if I go into view code, I just showed you that once. So the readme tells me how it works, and this is the Python code which I could deploy. So this is just an example of one input, but I've shown you in my previous video. I've been able to use the code, build a GUI front end, and I can run it interactively through the GUI front end also. So that's how you can I could actually then build a new agent from my Visual Studio also. So I don't even have to go into Foundry. So I don't even have to go into the Foundry to build new agents. I could build new agents from Visual Studio Code itself, as long as I have my Foundry extension installed. I preferably should also have my Azure extensions installed. Let me guess here. So it tells me what are my resources here. There's a few other resources installed, like the AI Toolkit, which also helps me work with my Foundry. It shows me what are the tools configured, what is knowledge configured. I have a vector store. This is the vector store, which is the vector store I have built for my Oracle Concepts RAG agent. So there are three components, three extensions we have installed: AI Toolkit, Azure, which normally people do install, and the Foundry. So that's a good way you can use Visual Studio Code along with your Foundry deployment on the web, and then get the code, build your own application front end, and run it.